Hi everyone, my name is Linda Harris and today I'm going to be talking to you about ecologically or biologically significant marine areas in South Africa on behalf of the EBSA team, and I'll be sharing with you the revisions, status assessments and proposed management of EBSAs. EBSAs are features or areas in the oceans or coasts that have high ecological or biological importance compared to surrounding areas, and they must meet at least one of the 7 EBSA criteria. They are applicable both within and beyond areas of national jurisdiction. The EBSA criteria are uniqueness or rarity, special importance for life history stages of species, so for example spawning areas, importance for threatened, endangered or declining species or habitats, vulnerability, fragility, sensitivity or slow recovery, so for example areas with corals, areas of high biological productivity, high biological diversity, and high naturalness. And the whole EBSA process started in 2004 when the Convention on Biological Diversity appointed an ad hoc working group to look for options for protecting marine biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction. And the working group got together and had a series of meetings, and eventually proposed this set of 7 EBSA criteria, which were adopted by the Convention on Biological Diversity. And in this process, it was recognized that EBSAs could be a useful tool not only for the high seas, but also in areas within national jurisdiction to help countries make progress towards achieving their HE targets. And so the CBD then facilitated a series of regional workshops where countries got together to look for options for EBSAs within national jurisdiction and also in the high seas adjacent to those countries in the region. And over 2013-2014, that was when South Africa's EBSAs were proposed and were adopted by the CBD. The original EBSA network comprised 18 EBSAs. 10 of these are national EBSAs, so they are exclusive to South Africa's marine territory, and 8 of these are transboundary. 3 are shared with one other neighboring country, so 2 are shared with Namibia and 1 is shared with Mozambique. And the others, as you can see, are very large EBSAs that also extend into the high seas. And this includes an EBSA in South Africa's Southern Ocean Territory, the Prince Edward Islands, and in an EBSA that is shared between South Africa and France, and also extends into the high seas as well. Protea Seamount was also recognized at the time as a site of importance, but there was not enough information to be able to assess the site against the EBSA criteria. So it was recognized but considered data deficient. And the delineations, as you can see, are approximate. They follow quite geometric shapes rather than precisely matching the underlying features for which the EBSAs are recognized. In 2016, the MARISMA project was started, and this is a collaborative project between South Africa, Namibia, and Angola. In other words, the entire Benguela Current Large Marine Ecosystem Area. And it comprises 3 work streams where the objectives of the EBSA work stream were to update and revise the existing EBSAs and to propose new ones, to do a status assessment of the EBSAs, and to propose management recommendations. And these would then feed into the Marine Spatial Planning work stream. In terms of EBSA revisions, the descriptions were updated, and each EBSA comes with a description that follows a template by the Convention on Biological Diversity. And we updated these with new information and new research that has happened since the original description. We also updated the delineations. As you can see, they much more closely match the underlying features for which the EBSAs are recognized. And this was based on systematic biodiversity planning and using a data-driven assessment. And this was also how we were able to identify new EBSAs based on sites that were highlighted in that analysis, and that once we evaluated them against the EBSA criteria, were found to meet the criteria. For the existing EBSAs that were updated, we also upgraded some of the criteria ranks. So for example, if a site previously ranked as medium importance for threatened species and habitats, and either the new delineation or new information then indicated that this was of high importance, then we upgraded the rank. And then we've also had a review process where the EBSAs have been subject to both national, regional and international review, and some of the changes that were made were based on recommendations from the international review process. This is what South Africa's revised EBSA network looks like. As you can see, we focused only on the EBSAs that are within national jurisdiction, because there's currently not a process by which EBSAs beyond national jurisdiction can be revised. And there are 12 national EBSAs now, because 2 of the previous EBSAs were each split into 2, so those 2 became 4. And then of the 8 transboundary EBSAs, only 2 were revised, and these were the 2 that are shared with Namibia. And the reason we didn't update the EBSA that is shared with Mozambique is that they were not part of the project, and it would require a separate international engagement. So it was beyond the scope of our project to engage with them. And then we also identified 3 new EBSAs, including the one in dark blue on the bottom left, which is the EBSA that now encompasses Protea Seamount. And we were able to find enough information about the site to be able to describe it and to rank it against the EBSA criteria. Then in terms of the status assessment, we looked at the rankings for each of the criteria to see for which features the EBSA was recognized as important. And then we used the latest maps and data from the National Biodiversity Assessment 2018 to assess the ecological condition, ecosystem threat status, and existing protection in each of the EBSAs. And this allowed us to see for which features the EBSA is recognized as being important, and what the status essentially of those features is and how well protected they are. In terms of management objectives, the CBD said that securing biodiversity within EBSAs is a matter for states, and there was no mandatory action required. However, countries were encouraged to implement enhanced management measures within EBSAs in order to secure the features for which the EBSA was recognized. And in the MARISMA project, we are aligning with the emerging marine spatial planning processes in each of the 3 countries. And as such, we are taking a place-based approach where each of the EBSAs is split into different zones with management recommendations per zone based on activity compatibility with the management objective. And so if we look at South Africa's National Marine Spatial Plan, it is anticipated that biodiversity will comprise 2 zones, the strict biodiversity conservation zone and an environmental impact management zone. And in the strict biodiversity conservation zone, there are 2 types, protected areas, which are managed according to the gazetted regulations and the individual MPA management plans. And then the second zone is other effective conservation measures, where the management objective is to maintain the site in a natural or near natural state. Then the environmental impact management zone has a management objective of maintaining the site in at least a functional state. And so activities are assessed based on their compatibility with each of those 2 management objectives. And those activities that are not compatible are recommended to be prohibited. Those that are conditionally compatible are recommended to be consent activities, and those that are compatible are recommended to take place under the normal rules and legislation. In terms of the proposed zoning, we are using the South Africa's National Coastal Marine Spatial Biodiversity Plan, so the CBA map, to inform the EBSA zoning, and the EBSAs are zoned into the marine protected areas, a conservation zone and an impact management zone. And these delineations are subject to ongoing revisions and engagements with stakeholders and the National EBSA Working Group. And also for each EBSA, we've done a feasibility assessment looking at the activities that are happening within the EBSA, how many of them are in the different zones, and what proportion of those activities would then be affected by the EBSA zoning. And then in terms of the compatibility assessment to inform the management recommendations, we compiled this matrix of activities and grouped them into 4 types. The activities that would or could result in severe or very severe degradation over broad areas, activities that would or could result in severe or very severe degradation of localized sites, areas that would or could result in or contribute to moderate degradation, or areas that have low to very low degradation or are not managed by biodiversity zones. And then we evaluated activities against the compatibility with the EBSA zones. And so, for example, activities that would or could result in severe or very severe degradation, that's not compatible with keeping a site in a natural or near natural state. And so our recommendation is those activities are considered not compatible with that zone. And we scored activities based on the ecosystem pressure matrix from the National Biodiversity Assessment. And this allowed us to compile a table of compatibility of activities with each of the 2 EBSA zones. And again, to align with the emerging MSP process, we nested these activities under the current proposed marine spatial planning zones. And essentially this table is based on the same principle as land use guidelines. So each activity per zone then has a recommended compatibility. And like I said earlier, these compatibility assessments will then go through into the marine spatial planning process, where they will be evaluated and negotiated and discussed with stakeholders, and eventually turned into the MSP regulations. And like I said, both the zoning and these CU's guidelines are subject to revision through ongoing negotiation and engagement with stakeholders, even before the MSP process. And we are continually aligning and integrating with the National Coastal and Marine Spatial Biodiversity Plan. So thank you very much. If you would like more information on the MARISMA project and specifically on South Africa's EBSAs, you can visit our website. Thank you.